Hi, welcome to Healthy Alternatives. I'm your host, Lauren Servin. And tonight we're going to talk about an alternative for good health. And now that the weather is turning nicer, we think. It's turning nicer anyway. It was 48 degrees a couple of days ago, and it's going to be 90 degrees this weekend. But is the great outdoors. And not many people think about being outdoors as a healthy activity. So my guests tonight, my three guests tonight, have really dedicated a large amount of their time towards promoting this cause. And I'd like to introduce them. We have Diane Doot. Diane Doot. And Diane is the Central Connecticut Health District Representative.
Yes.
And part of your job is to create opportunities for the public in, it's a tri-town area or four towns?
Four towns. Wethersfield, Rocky Hill, Berlin, and Newington all fall within the Central Connecticut Health District's overview.
Okay.
And, you know, as we were talking about earlier, one of the things that we seek to do is to promote the health of everyone. You know, we don't... Public health does not focus on individuals and their health the way the medical community does. Public health focuses on the health of everyone with large-scale initiatives, opportunities, policy changes at the level of communities.
Right. I know, because we don't really necessarily think about our environment as part of our health.
Correct.
But really, we live in an environment, and we need
to
to have a healthy environment
yes.
and opportunities to engage in that environment. So that's a lot of what you do.
Yes.
So, and our next guest is a repeat offender, Jim Woodworth. He's a stewardship chair for the Connecticut Great Meadows Conservation Trust. Right?
Right.
And Jim, want to just kind of recap what you do again?
Well, the Great Meadows Conservation Trust is a over 30-year-old land trust dedicated to preserving the floodplain, wetland, wildlife habitat, agricultural resources of the Great Meadows of Wethersfield, Rocky Hill, and Glastonbury. And one of our goals is to educate the public and invite the public out to be in this wonderful environment of the floodplain.
You know, it is a beautiful environment, and I think, you know, we think it's just there, but really it needs to be preserved and maintained, doesn't it, Jim?
Absolutely.
So part of that is through promoting it and efforts to protect it, which is what your group
Right,
does.
and this weekend coming up is Connecticut Trails Day weekend, which has been sponsored for over 20 years by the Connecticut Forest and Parks Association, and they actually have, with all their local affiliates, scheduled over 250 hikes, bike rides, and paddles in the state of Connecticut.
This weekend.
This weekend. So you can't be all those places at once, but we hope you'll join us in Connecticut, in Wethersfield and Rocky Hill.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. This weekend's activities, in particular. And our final guest is Bob Ludwig, and Bob, you are a volunteer for the Connecticut Great Meadows Conservation Trust. So you and Jim work together a lot.
Yes, we've been working on different projects with the Great Meadows. I've also been doing things in parks in Rocky Hill, and just generally trying to do a little bit of trail maintenance with Forest and Park Association and just local groups.
So in your area of sort of interest is the quarry?
That's where I'm going to be leading the walk this weekend.
Oh, okay.
But I've been working in a number of different parks in Rocky Hill and property for the Great Meadows in Wethersfield, and going to continue doing that.
Good. Very good. All right. So the goals of the trust, Jim, maybe you could go over that a little bit more for our viewers at home.
Well, in addition, we are a land trust, and so we own over 40 properties, small properties spread out through the meadows. We call it strategically located. to help protect the meadows by
So,
owning it.
and these are just properties, no homes are on them, just
Absolutely, they're all in the floodplain, so you can't build on them, but you can do other things that would be detrimental. To the landscape. And so some of our walks are to visit some of the places that we preserve and just to experience the nature that's out there, so close to Hartford, so close to metropolitan area.
right.
And,
Yeah, I mean, Weathersfield and Rocky Hill and Glastonbury, even though they're towns, they're sort of urban.
they are.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and so not just maintaining, but actually letting people know that these places exist
That's
and they can
correct.
take advantage
Yeah.
of it at their own leisure.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're really sort of like a park ranger.
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah, definitely.
If you want to talk about the individual, we have some walks scheduled that are on private lands where if you walk with us on Saturday morning, you wouldn't be able to visit those places really on your own, probably. We have some other walks that are on places that are properties that are open to the public or a bike ride on the roads that you can do at your leisure whenever the weather's right or you have the opportunity. And so we have information online on those things that would help people whenever they get the urge.
Yeah, and maybe we can post your website because I think a large part of it is people just don't know where to go. Right?
That's right.
There's so many open spaces. You don't know how to get there. We usually sort of, while we're driving down 91, sort of see big expanses of land, but we have no idea how to get there or if they're even, if we're able to go in there.
That's actually something that the health district has been working on over the last couple of years through their Achieve Committee, which is a grant-funded committee for people for the 4 towns that I mentioned that are in the Central Connecticut Health District, and we've got, just people that are volunteers like myself. We have some town managers, and we have some Parks and Rec people. So we've got a great group of people. But besides promoting Connecticut Trails Day, which I know we'll get back to, we also are trying to improve knowledge and use of some of the existing trails, like you mentioned. For example, looking at ways to make, say, if you want to take a walk or a hike in the town of Weathersfield, where do you go? Make it easy to find online, make it easier to print out maps showing you exactly how long the hike is, what you could expect on the hike, how hard is it going to be.
Or maybe even signage.
Signage is expensive, but we are looking at signage, and we do have some money that we're going to devote to signage. But even just finding it initially, and sort of what our dream is to. Each of the 4 towns has some information online. It varies a lot by town, what's there, how easy it is to use. For example, Newington has some nice descriptions of places to walk, but there's no maps. I'm a map person. I always want a map when I go out. So one of the things we're hoping to do is work with the geography people at Central Connecticut State University next year to really develop a good, user-friendly system of maps for all 4 towns.
Great
Berlin
idea.
Actually on its own is going to come out with a little notebook where that you're going to be able to buy from them. They're working on that right now. Which, if you've ever seen the Connecticut Walk Book that the Connecticut Forest and Parks, it would be a mini version of that for the trails in Berlin. And we'd love to see that for all 4 towns. Available online, available if you wanted to go to Town Hall and buy it.
Right, have it in your pocket.
Yeah, get it on your phone. There's ways to put it on a smartphone.
That's right.
So as many ways.
Or GPS, you could be out there walking around.
Yeah.
Turn left at the birch tree. No,
seriously, you laugh, but that might be.
Recalculate.
That might be the way one family would like.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people are afraid of the woods.
They haven't.
Or they don't know what if I get lost? There's poison ivy, bugs, snakes.
They need to get more familiar. They need to learn with it.
The more people that use it, the safer it's going to be for everybody. And it gets, when you see other people out there, you know that it's safe to go out there and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I didn't even think of other people lurking around. Right.
Good point. Yeah.
Wow.
So for walks to work, they've got to be safe for your level. And that's one thing we're looking at is what might be the level for us, might not be the level for someone else. I mean, we want walks in the area that are appropriate for people with walkers, people in wheelchairs. That needs to be out there too, and there's very specific requirements for that. In fact, there will be a walk in Newington that's suitable for wheelchairs and walkers. That's one of the
You know,
things available.
I tell you, I think it's so great because, you know, more and more alternative healthcare providers are telling people that to be engaged in nature is very healing. Whether you're suffering from emotional distress or even physical illness, that being out in nature is healing.
That's right.
Probably, you know, even maybe more so than a pharmaceutical drug. So, you know, we've got this resource, and you guys are really kind of forging, you're pioneers to get people to engage. Yay. Because, you know, we evolved in nature.
Yeah.
Right? As human
Absolutely.
beings. And now we're, I mean, really, I think most people have this sense of isolation from the natural world. I know I do, and I get outside quite a bit.
You need to make it easier for people to feel comfortable going outside so that you have maps, you have brochures or whatever to promote where these things are, and people with a map and a description of a trail, you know whether it's appropriate for you. So you don't want to go out and, oh, this is a 10-mile hike, you can't take that. But if you know what it is, what kind of terrain is going to be, you're going to encounter, then people with whatever ability level, they'll be able to go out and enjoy it.
And there's all kinds of things to see, right? I mean, it's not just you like walking around and
And I'd say one of the
talking
things
on
I'm
your cell
saying,
phone. I mean, there's all sort of nature out there.
Every time you go out, if your eyes are open and your ears are open, you're going to see something different depending on the time of day and the season. So, you know, getting a healthy routine of walking is easy to do
Yeah.
and fulfilling, and you get that recharge.
Now, you were telling me about some snapping turtles.
Well, sure. I guess I kind of like to stick with the schedule.
Sure,
because,
okay.
when I talk about that one down there,
All right.
the little kids walk, it's not far, but boy, there's all kinds of wildlife in there.
Well, you know, and I think, you know, we've pretty much covered the healthy outdoor activities, would you say?
Absolutely, yeah.
Would you say, Jim?
The general idea of it,
Okay,
sure.
okay.
Yeah,
Is there anything else you'd like to say about that?
yeah. Get out there and do it.
Yeah, that's what
Join
I
us.
say.
We'll show you which way to go. We'll lead you.
Well, you know, and then the next generation of environmentalists.
Well, I
And-
was just saying that we became environmentalists because we had experiences as children in the outdoors.
Right.
And so we got to help kids get out there and have those experiences.
Yeah, it's like, you know, you don't have to be in Greenpeace to be an environmentalist.
No,
No,
I mean,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Educational opportunities for school groups or for nature walks within a school group to identifying trees, wildlife. There's some of the areas have archaeological areas that would be of interest for different groups, and getting children involved with it so that they learn early on that this is an interesting thing. They'll get healthy in spite of themselves because
It's a
they'll be
healthy-
out
it's a
there
healthy
and won't
activity.
realize
Yeah.
they're getting some exercise.
Yep.
Getting vitamin D, right?
Absolutely.
Getting all the good energy. Because, you know, really, I think children today are just bombarded with electromagnetic radiation from devices, right? The phones, the games, right? They're really not out in the
TV.
nice radiant energy of the sun and the trees.
We should probably have a sign at the front of any of these walks that you have to turn off all electronic apparatus so that you're not connected with the outside world while you're
People are
connected
talking
with
on their
nature.
cell phones. Well,
Just to speak up
but people like take pictures
in
by
a
their
way for
phones.
the alternative, there's an app that a daughter of a friend of mine developed. So with your iPhone, you got this app going, you take a picture, and it spots the place on Google Maps.
Maps,
So all it
cool.
shows you where you went and
Oh, yeah.
where the pictures you took
Yeah, that's good.
came from. It's a great
positive
thing if you have an
technology.
iPhone, which
Yeah,
of
that's
course.
a great
That's
idea.
positive
I'll
technology.
allow that because I wasn't familiar with it.
Yeah, I mean it's. So, and then if we had one of those, I mean, that might help people get out there
Yeah.
on those trails.
Yeah,
too.
that's pretty cool.
Well, people like their toys, their electronic toys.
Yeah.
So, you have to let them
kinda
engage in
integrate-
both.
yeah, integrate with,
Right. It's not a
yeah.
contest,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But, it does seem to be that we have a lopsided life
And
these days,
our,
people.
our lives are so air conditioned. It's kind of tough. So drink a lot and come on out on Saturday and
It's
Sunday.
gotta be
when
nice
it's
and
90
warm.
degrees.
It's good for you to sweat.
Yeah, that's
It
right.
is good.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Well, and talking about just, getting people out and moving around, because you were saying before we went on the air about the obesity rates in our 4-town area is 30%.
30%, which reflects the national average of people that are obese. So that's not even just overweight. That meets the definition of obesity and all the myriad health problems that go, heart disease, diabetes, kinds of cancer, high blood pressure, strokes, heart attacks, everything that being overweight predisposes you to.
Right.
And there's clearly evidence out there that more people are suffering from this because we have a more sedentary lifestyle now, more driving, less walking, and we have more things to do things for us around the house. So, to some extent, you've got to kind of recreate the way our lives were 50, 75, 100 years ago. You just had to go out and be more physical. It used to be you had to go walk because you had to go walk. Now you kind of have to do it because you have to work it into your leisure plan. But you got to make it enjoyable, or people aren't going to do it if it's not fun. So.
Yeah, I wonder why it is that some people are just more wired to move than
Some people
others.
are.
Some of us have energy levels that just sit
You just
still
want
as
to,
but,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
The rising gas prices should help people to walk a little bit more.
Well, you would hope,
You would hope.
or ride their bikes, and
Yeah.
now we are going to be getting the bridge to Glastonbury
Yeah.
or
Very
Yeah.
excited
or
by
to
that.
Weathersfield, depending on which end of the
Right.
road you're on.
Or out on the
But-
river so you can look into the meadows.
Yeah. It's a great connector because I always felt, I'm not from here, and when I first moved here, I thought, these two nice towns,
I know.
and you need a car. You can't even walk across the bridge,
Unless
for
the
God's
ferry's
sake.
running, in which case you
Well,
can take the ferry.
but then that's only
Yeah.
in the
Only
nice
certain
weather.
Yeah, and certain
Right.
hours too. But
Exactly.
Just a little plug, one thing that the health district would like to do, we're going to explore this for next year, is to look into see if there's people interested in developing sort, I don't know, it'd probably be town by town, maybe Wethersfield, maybe Newington, Rocky Hill, if we could do it. Bike-friendly communities, which is a national designation. Right now there's only 2 towns in the state of Connecticut, Simsbury and South Windsor, I think, that are, quote, bike-friendly communities. And it's this whole process you go through. You've got to have safe streets, you've got to have bike routes, you've got to have education, you have to promote it to your children and to families. West Hartford's working on that right now.
I know West Hartford is.
West Hartford
Yep.
has started. It's like a 5-year process.
Yeah,
But
it
that
is a
may be
process.
something we look to see if people are, if
Yeah.
there's a core of people interested in pursuing that.
that's a great idea.
So that's just
Yeah.
a little plug for next year, something we'll be looking into.
I saw the bikes you can borrow. We were out biking along the Farmington River to Collinsville and so forth, and there were bikes lined up. You could, for $10, and fill out a form. $10 of a
on the bike
deposit.
trail out in
fill out,
Collinsville? Yeah.
Fill out the form, and you can ride off on the bicycle.
Cool.
I had some people who said, how do you register for this bike ride? I said, don't worry, you don't have to register.
Yeah.
And then they said, do you have to bring your own bike? I'm thinking, yeah.
Oh, because those
Where do you
towns
get a
have
bike?
the rental
that
bikes.
we don't even have a bike shop in Wethersfield anymore.
No, we don't.
I don't even know
we
if the
don't.
bike shops rent. Sorry,
I don't know if
should have
I don't know if they
researched
do.
that. But
Yeah, I don't know if they do either.
yeah,
I like places where there's like the rail trail out on Cape Cod where you can rent a bike and then go out on it.
Yeah, but we're not at that level yet. But maybe if
But
we got
that
more,
might be a piece of it. I had not thought about that.
Yeah.
So, before we move on to our next topic, do you have anything else you'd like to say about this next generation of environmentalists? Who thought that up?
Well, that was we
No, because I think that's great.
Yeah, I know.
Really, what you're doing is very
we
important.
go to workshops with the Land Trust Alliance and the Connecticut Forest and Parks people, and those are some of the workshops we went to. They said, "Well, how do we do this?" They had a panel discussion over in Glastonbury about where's the next generation of we're all retired and, you know, so forth, but so it's an important thing.
Yes, and I want to stress again that this is volunteer effort, right?
Absolutely.
Which, you know, when we were growing up, well, maybe not you.
No,
but it wasn't that. I mean, that was a career for people. Environmental services. Now it's
well, it still is a career. Both of my boys are in somewhat environmental careers.
That's great, right? But it seems like those jobs are fewer and fewer.
Well, it could be, but there's a lot of work to be done. So,
Jim and I were both there and speaking to support the aspect of the plan, which of course includes, you know, how you keep economically healthy in a town, but also preserving the environment, a healthy environment we're talking about. So one thing that they talked about in the plan is how do you think about preserving open space? We're a dense community, you know, that first ring of suburbs around Hartford, there's not a lot of open land left. So what's there, you need to think about how you preserve it. Sometimes that costs a lot of money. So it's something
Wethersfield is more dense than, I would say, Glastonbury.
Yes.
Glastonbury has got a lot
They've
of
got
space
a lot of
out
open
there,
land.
but they're also preserving it because they have a lot, and it's a good thing. But.
So we went to support, you know, conservation of open space, which has been controversial in Wethersfield.
Yes.
And making it a more walkable community.
That's what we were talking about.
Walkable community, both for everybody, but you know, one thing that's very much on the mind of public health is people aging in place, people not staying in their communities as they get older. You know, the car-focused society in town may become less useful for them, but if they want to remain in their community, there needs to be more options for them to walk to church, drugstore, library, town hall. But it needs to be safe, needs to be pleasant. Sidewalks need to be there. Traffic needs to be such that people feel comfortable crossing the roads. All those are things that a town can plan for. If if citizens come out and make it known that that's a priority for them.
Yeah, and you know, I know I'd certainly like to age in place, as you say, and even not just the elderly, but for children to be able to walk.
Yeah, you know, kids do not walk and bike to school the way they used to.
No,
not at all the way when we were growing up, and you know.
And you know, think about even the money that would be saved if they did on the education budget.
Yeah, the money, the emissions from school buses. There's lots of positives to having more people walking in town or biking to their destinations.
Yeah,
society has gotten much more overprotective of children, which obviously they should be protected. But when a child I don't know what all the rules are for how far someone can walk to school, but when I was a kid, which was a very long time ago, nobody took a school bus. Everybody walked, and now it seems like if you have to walk more than a couple of blocks, you get picked up and driven there.
Yeah.
There's got to be a balance for protecting the kids, but also getting people out walking more and encouraging
well, and if they all walk together, you know, strength in numbers. I think that's part of the
On
issue.
top of that, see all the cars lined up with the parents dropping the kids off.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's one of those things.
So let's talk a little bit about this weekend, June 1st, which is National Trails Day and Connecticut Trails Day, but it's really a weekend, so it's not just the
It's
day.
both days, and as I said, I meant to bring one of those brochures in, but there's a brochure with 269 things.
There's the website that they can.
Yeah, there's if you go to Connecticut ctwoodlands.org, that's where you'll find the online version with some things that didn't make the printed version.
Oh, always updates.
There's updates, so there's another 15 or 20 walks or hikes or whatever.
And these are all walks and hikes in the 4 towns?
No, those are
This is all in the state
all
of
of Connecticut.
Connecticut.
So
Okay.
in the 4 towns, there are this many walks in this brochure.
Plus what I wrote on the back.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's a dozen walks in
Plus
the 4.
more back there that they added in.
Okay.
And you are conducting
And we have
activity, and so are you.
Wethersfield and Rocky Hill walks are conducted by the Great Meadows Conservation Trust, and I'd like to talk about those specific walks, if I might.
We'd love to have you do that.
And
Off my glasses.
I thought I'd break the walks into two categories. One that are on private lands. There's a couple of walks that are on private lands, so that in the meadows, so that if you go with our guide, you can go places where you wouldn't normally be.
So is this like a farm or someone's backyard? What do you mean by private land? Any kind
Well, they're owned by farmers or the game club, or in the case of Crow Point, it's owned by Goodwin College.
Oh, okay.
But they don't feel comfortable opening it to public, so
For
it's not
insurance
open to
purposes,
public.
probably.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's you know, you have to keep an eye on
Yeah,
things. If you
people
don't.
getting hurt.
So I'd like to start with the first one that starts at 9 o'clock, and it meets at Putnam Park. That's the building next to the Putnam Bridge
Okay.
in the parking lot. And the Great Meadows Conservation Trust joins with Goodwin College on that, because Goodwin College recently, in the last 3 or 4 years, purchased the large piece of land on Crow Point that had been owned for 40 years or something by the construction company that built the Putnam Bridge and worked on the highway.
Oh, so what, they just had all their junk piled up in there?
No, they dug up a lot of dirt there, and they thought that, well, there was the racetrack proposal. They thought they were going to sell that to a developer.
They're going to put a
and
racetrack there?
They were going to put dikes around part of the meadows. This was in 1968, before people began to realize that flood storage was a good thing. That flood water storage was a bad. You know, building a dike just meant you had to build the dikes higher to keep all the water out.
Right.
And the town of Wethersfield didn't want to have Connecticut's Churchill Downs in our town with everything that would come with it.
Oh, you
And
mean it was going to be a horse race?
it was going to be horse racing, yes. And there would be paddocks and motels, and then there would be a boatel for the people that came into Crow Point,
Oh, wow.
which was where all the it was mined basically for the fill. And town of Wethersfield
wow.
said no.
Huh.
So it's preserved the way it is, but it's not the way it was. So we talk about standing there in the parking lot. Imagine what it would have been like when Comstock Ferry was washing tomato seeds on this little bluff here before the bridge, and this little inlet was used to park boats by the colonists when they were going, or the early American people and so forth. And then we walked down out on Crow Point, where in 1927, if you had a car, you could drive out there to the beach on a hot, sunny Sunday afternoon. And their Hartford Courant article said 500 people were out there. In spite of what the health commissioner said, that's not a good thing to do because the water's not safe to swim in. That was before sewage treatment plants and so forth. And but anyway, so we walk out there and look at that and see how nature's kind of reclaimed what people destroyed. But there's also farmland. There's turf and corn and beans and other vegetables out there.
So that's kind of a nature reclamation walk.
Yeah, it's a nature reclamation. Yeah,
Right?
And you can
That's
see
interesting.
there's a couple of old cement silos out there, marooned from whenever it was, the 40s, when dairying was at its peak around here, I think, maybe.
Oh, dairy farming.
Yeah, and so there were cows and so forth out there.
Well, you've got that whole river valley. I mean,
Yeah.
now it's just like the edge of the highway.
Right,
Right.
In a way.
Yeah.
But
Whose
so
idea was it to put the highway right next to the river?
well, they thought about one possibility. You know, Route 15 on Folly Brook Boulevard has a great big wide bridge. They thought about putting it down Folly Brook, slicing Wethersfield in half, and they didn't. They cut us off from the river instead.
Wow.
It's one of those things. You know, that dirt that they dug up in the meadows, guy I went to high school with they took that soil and they spread it out on the median of I-91 but before the grass grew, he walked on there and picked up arrowheads from the soil.
Wow.
So, anyway, there's a lot of history on that walk, and that's at 9 o'clock, ends at 11.
Okay.
It goes by where the Wethersfield Game Club shooting range is. So that's at 9 o'clock from the north end of the Meadows.
Right.
And then there's another walk at 9 o'clock starting from the ferry landing in Rocky Hill. And this is a wonderful walk. It's led by Ken Etheridge, who's kind of the Great Meadows Conservation Trust birding expert. Mm-hmm. He is, he knows, he will have identified, maybe you won't, you'll be looking through your binoculars, 50 species of birds in that one walk.
Great. Wow.
And he's been watching the eagles down there.
So
for the last
so all you bird lovers down there. Yeah, there are I've seen the eagle's nest
the big
down there.
And there's a kestrel. We have kestrel boxes where there were kestrels last year. That's another long story, but they were banded and we got to hold them.
Wow.
It's really a neat thing. That happens later in the
And how
summer.
far into the meadows is that going to go?
That's 3 or 4 miles maybe. That's a pretty extensive
So they're going to
walk.
stay in Rocky Hill?
Well, come up to the Wethersfield border, I think.
And then turn around?
And kind of make a circuit around off-road, so to speak. There is a public road that goes through the meadows, but they go in the back. And most of the land is owned either by the Rocky Hill or the Wethersfield Game Club in their respective towns, by various farmers, and by by the Great Meadows Conservation Trust.
Oh, so the Great Meadows owns property.
We own some of that, yes. We own parcels here and there. So that's another unique walk that you can't do other times. I mean, there are numerous birders who come through the meadows to see birds and who know. And when I see one hooked up, I say, okay, what is that little brown bird over there? And they tell me, what kind of shorebird is passing through. Or I ran into a guy with one of those bazooka of lenses.
Yeah.
And he was taking shots of birds that there were 2 immature eagles flying around together, kind of, I don't know, jostling the way teenagers would, I guess. And beautiful pictures, at least one of which is on our website. So
wow, great.
But so anyway, it's a wonderful birding area, and Ken Etheridge is the guy to introduce you to it at 9 o'clock at the ferry landing on Saturday, June 1st.
Okay. So is there another walk that day?
There are several walks that day, and the other walks are in public areas that you could go back again and again, or if you can't make it because you're hiking with Ken Etheridge, you can go back on your own, because there are maps, there are, they're easy to find. And so Bob, go ahead. And Bob's going to talk about the one in Quarry Park that he will be leading.
Okay.
Yes, I am leading the walk at Quarry Park. That is
What
location.
time is that?
That's at 10 o'clock
10
on
o'clock?
Saturday. It's about a 2.5 mile walk. It's the parking lot is located on Old Main Street opposite Marshall Road. It's the area we're going to be walking in is going to be the overlook. There is going to be overlooking over the Great Meadows area, looking into the Glastonbury Hills, and you can see Hartford from the overlook. We're going to be staying. There's 3 different trails in there. We're going to be staying mostly on the Blue Trail. A group of people have been working on maintaining the trails and clearing them out, getting overhanging branches out of the way. Some of the things we're going to be seeing there, this was a skiing club that was operated in 1948 is when they had a ski club there. There's a 1936 Buick still there, the remains of it, that was powering the ski lift. So that whole area that they were skiing on is now all trees have grown up there. So there's no more skiing, but there is the remains of what was there.
So that's another kind of a reclamation.
Yes, but the
People
area
who cross-country ski on the trails
Yes.
there in the wintertime when
all
the
the way through.
Yeah.
The area, it was quarried from the late 1800s to around 1950 or so.
And what were they looking
Trap rock.
Oh, okay.
So it's all, that has closed down. At different times it was used in Rocky Hill for town garage type of things. They were parking vehicles there. It was privately owned, and they wanted to develop that area, the quarry itself, into housing for apartments and condominiums. 1,000 units of housing were supposed to go in there. And a neighborhood group got together and fought it for a number of years, defeating proposal after proposal that the developer came up with. And finally, the town worked out an agreement with the state to buy the property. It is now, it's the Rocky Hill's only state park. It is a state park and town managed. So it's now going to be preserved as that.
It's a really nice space.
There's a lot of...
has a very good energy there.
It does.
Yeah,
some of the other things that have been used in the past, there was, during World War II, there was a army camp there, and they were looking for enemy planes. They had a lookout tower there that was manned 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, looking for enemy planes that might be coming in.
Wow.
To the best of my knowledge, they didn't get any coming
Didn't find any.
So that was a good thing. They did their job. It's
I did not know that.
They have done archaeological digs in there. There's a number of places where I think there's 4 different archaeological digs that were done, and they found evidence of civilizations dating 5,000 to 6,000 years old.
Really?
And a number of things, in periods since then, including, Indian arrowheads and other kinds of finds for the archaeological artifacts that were found in there. And it's been all of those archaeological sites, people know where they are, but they're not near any of the trails, and it's basically we're not letting anybody know where the actual sites were.
You don't want people digging.
So to prevent someone from trying to find something. But it's, since the whole area was heavily, about 1/3 of it is the way it had been a long time ago, and it's now forested. That's the area where the ski area was. But 2/3 of it was the part that was the quarry, and that's all been excavated. So it's all taken out. There are the remains of the quarrying operation, crushing different concrete pillars and stuff, or the crushing equipment. So there's areas that were used for that. The railroad, which is just east of Quarry Park and runs between the Meadows and the Quarry Park, the railroads came up and would be loaded with all the trap rock and was moved from there. The hike will, like I said, will be about 2.5 miles.
And now this is kind of a hilly hike.
Yes, so
this isn't flat terrain.
A lot of it is very, very flat. I must say the part that was excavated is very flat, like it was road-like. It's all very flat. There's some little bit steep areas, but it's not a terribly challenging walk.
Okay.
I think.
But I mean, for people who maybe have some joint issues, or this isn't like they want to go on a hike. They haven't put sneakers on in 20 years. Would it be a good hike for them to go on?
Maybe they could pick a easier hike than this.
Okay.
But you can kind of walk up to the top.
Yeah, the walk
out
from the parking
and
lot.
Come back.
Yeah, from the parking lot up to the overlook, looking over the Meadows and looking for as far as Hartford and Connecticut River, all of that is not. It's uphill, but it's not terribly steep. So that would be an area someone could walk that far, see that, and decide not to walk the rest of it.
And it's not often that we get to have big open vistas, views like that.
That's right.
And especially because we live in the valley.
Another park in Rocky Hill that for this year, we don't have a official walk there. Dividend Pond Trails. That is that the grand opening of those trails was last year, and we did have on Trails Day. So we did have a walk there last year. But this is an area that it's a state archaeological site because that was the original industrial park in Rocky Hill, dating back like 300 years. And the remains of the different industrial things that were there are still there, the foundations of the buildings and stuff.
Really?
The trails that were built there was some overgrown trails there originally, but in the about a year ago, a group of people got together and we cleared out the trails and they put a kiosk in. We cleaned up the parking lot, and now it's a 2-mile walk around. There's a couple different loops going around the lower pond and the upper pond. There's a 30-foot waterfall in between the two ponds.
And it sounds like a nice place for people who want a nice jog.
Yes, and there's some of
Right?
the areas are steep and narrow trails, and some of it is very wide open, and you can walk on it. So it's we've been promoting that, and that's open for anyone, anytime.
So you all just decided you're going to clean up this chunk of land on your own?
I was on the email list. I did not participate in that, but Bob did, and Ed Ciccarella, and some and other and
I just think that's amazing.
other Sandy Kelly and other Great Meadows Trust and Rocky Hill residents did. And every Saturday we pulled all this stuff out, and I thought, geez, that was pretty good. They must be done. And then the next Saturday we pulled another,
more and more
tires, and it's just amazing the work they did.
That's incredible.
So and all volunteer work. Town participates some, but it takes volunteers. The towns just don't.
Yeah, does the town provide like vehicles to cart stuff
well,
away?
I went in there with a trailer and loaded up, old couches and appliances and oil tank, and we did a lot of work. A lot of people were involved, and
so that was like a dumping ground for people.
yeah,
These places are like that. The
Unfortunately-
Park was.
It's a dumping ground.
Yeah.
A lot of the work was tree work because some of the storms that we've had in the last year or so did a lot of damage. That's what a lot of the clearing of the trails was, because a lot of trees were down. So I was in there with a chainsaw and clearing out some of the stuff that was in the way. More recently,
I just don't see you with a chainsaw, Bob.
You have to see Bob all dressed up with.
You're so well-mannered.
Yeah.
More recently there, I went down with a couple other people, and the town is planning on putting in a bridge over different areas. The Dividend Brook goes through. That's what's feeding the ponds. And we needed a temporary bridge, so we cut down a tree had already fallen down. It was already over. So we cut a 40-foot section of it, 1.5 foot diameter, and dragged it across the bridge, across the brook, in order to, and flattened out the top of it. Actually, there was one big log and the two other ones, and we put them all together so that we could, it's not quite completed yet, but people are walking across there. So
How did you drag that big tree?
We did it with come-alongs and block and tackle and rollers, and
unbelievable.
If they built the pyramids, we can.
That's what I was just thinking. If they built the pyramids, you could. All right. Well, I think we have a pretty good idea of the spaces around town here. Our towns where we
have one more that we want to talk about.
Sure. Well,
and that is called our wood parcel.
That's
because
right,
we
the
purchased
wood
it
parcel.
from the Wood family. Mm-hmm. And it's
really? I thought it was because it was in the
No,
woods.
that's a coincidence.
Oh.
Sarah Wood still lives in the house that was part of that parcel. Mm-hmm. But the house that she grew up in, the 18th century house, is gone. That's where Route 3 went through the middle. So this property is on the corner of Route 3, Maple Street, and Middletown Avenue.
Yep.
And we got the aluminum bridge, which Bob's block and tackle helped to drag into place. And we have a wonderful kiosk and sign with some information, which I have to update before Saturday. And
now you say, so this is going to be a little kids walk, you said, right?
Yes, and what inspired me, I brought my grandchildren down there, and they just loved it. And it's such an intimate space because the trails, even if you took both loops, it's like 4/10 of a mile.
Oh, perfect for little
But
children.
there's so many wonderful things to see. There's the brook, there's a bridge, there's a couple of benches, and then there's the pond with the turtles.
Oh, that's where the turtles are.
Yesterday morning, after a cold night, there were 25 turtles. Not turtles, but turtles, all reaching up with their long necks, looking at me when I came across.
They were hungry.
They were all looking at me saying, are you going to be nice, or are you going to do... Anyway, and then I went, now the brook runs through the marsh, and it runs all the way through marsh down to 91, and then into Goff Brook, and then into the river eventually. But there's also an irrigation pond dug out of the brook that irrigates the Anderson Farms fields behind that.
Oh.
And when I walked around there, first there was a woodchuck running away. You could see several holes. Then there was a muskrat swimming in the pond. Then there was a snapping turtle this big with his head sticking up, but you could see the rest of them under it through the water was clear enough.
So it's a lot of water creatures.
So there's lots of water creatures, but there's also a farm field. The Trust's property, which is about 15 acres, includes part of the marsh and 6 acres of farmland beyond that. And those 6 acres are part of the Elm Street, an area was called the Great Plains historically, which is where the Native Americans had their summer encampment.
Oh.
Every summer they would come, set up down there, farm that area, and all sorts of artifacts have been discovered since then. I was just down there watching a guy walking along, looking at the dirt, and he said, I just found this arrowhead here.
Wow.
So my grandfather found some when he farmed further down that way, so I'll bring a few arrowheads.
Yeah.
And
what time does this walk start?
And there are 2 opportunities. The first one at 10:30 a.m.
Okay.
when it's just getting super hot, and one at 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. that's really hot.
Heat of the day.
In the heat of the day, but there's a shade and part of it.
Yeah.
And
It's a good way to initiate summer.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
And I think, people have dogs and the dogs make them walk, so I'm thinking grandchildren have the same function, making their parents and grandparents walk. And so I'm hoping that they'll come. And we have stickers.
So it's not just for little kids.
No, well, if we had 25 little kids, we'd be in trouble.
We wouldn't get much walking done.
But and we're partnering. I've have a couple of kids, hopefully from the the Ecology Club at Wethersfield High School. They're going to help out.
Good.
And a couple of 4-H club members. Cindy Aylward is the advisor to that, and
Great.
she's going to be there along with Diane, and who has a canopy for the hot weather, hopefully.
That's right.
So Diane, you'll be there at the...
I'll be there
at the
registering
parcel.
people. We
Oh,
like to keep
okay.
track of who comes, just so we know who shows up.
Connecticut Forest and Parks has a procedure because they feel responsible,
Right.
and so we'll fill that out and try to make sure that everybody who signed it went out came back.
Oh, right.
That's always
And
good.
now we're running out of time, but
I got to talk about the bike
Well,
ride
that's
before we
what
quit.
that's why I'm
So,
steering you towards that. Get steering.
9 o'clock on Sunday morning, even though it's going to be only 86 degrees the last time I saw. It starts at the Wethersfield Cove. That starts at 9, and we go through the meadows and see the Anderson Farms, and then Fairweather Acres Farm has their bean washing operation down there. In past years, they've raised 600 acres of beans in Wethersfield, Rocky Hill, and Suffield.
Wow.
They've cut back. They're still raising a couple of 100 acres of beans, but they're also doing other kinds of more diversifying into more other vegetables and corn. And we'll see that. And then there's Winding Brook Turf Farm. We go past where the archaeological digs were, part of what I think associated with what Bob was talking about, that you can see the vase put together at the Rocky Hill Historical Society.
Right.
Down to the ferry, riding across the oldest ferry in the country, which we want to keep open, so we want to ride it and advertise it, and then up into Glastonbury, to the Killen-Bassett farm, where last fall we saw the pigs that were yay big, and hopefully there'll be some piglets this big, getting ready to.
And then you'll loop around and.
We won't loop around because the bridge isn't done yet, but we'll come back
Through the ferry.
Across the ferry and.
Well, that sounds like a lovely ride, and I wish I could make that ride. Maybe I'll try to see what I can do. Get off this weekend
Absolutely.
to do it. I would love to go, but I know we spoke before on the air, and I was very impressed with what you do, and tonight I'm just blown away by. This is all volunteer efforts to just really help people connect with the environment. It's so admirable. It was really my pleasure.
It's obviously something that we all love.
Yeah.
I would like to mention that the Quarry Park walk is sponsored by the Rocky Hill Parks and Recreation Department. They're going to be involved also. So I'm leading the walk, but actually I'm a substitute walk because Ed Ciccarilla, who was going to do the walk, can't make it, so I'm going to be doing it instead. So.
Right. Well, I hope everyone considers taking advantage of this weekend because, not only it's a great way for our health, but even socially. I mean, you can meet your people in your community who normally you would just be driving by on the Silas Deane Highway or someplace else. So.
Well, and I really urge people. I mean, almost every town in the state of Connecticut will have something, and there's a huge variety of activities. ctwoodlands.org. You can just see it all there. There's something for everyone.
Right. So that's ctwoodlands.org. Check it out and get out this weekend.
And www.gmct.org.
www.gmct.org. All right. Get out there this weekend, people. Thank you.